Hey everybody, Forever Retro 82 here. Hope you're staying safe and being well, as always. Today we're basically doing something a little different from the norm. Most of the time, when arcade games are ported to the home systems, sometimes you get mixed results. As a matter of fact, most times mixed results. They gotta take out some things because the Genesis and SNES at that time frame did not have the technical specs to put in the entirety of the game one and one to the arcade to the home system. Some things had to be taken out or downsized or what have you due to resolution differences and different technical specifications. But a lot of the time, most of the time, at least from what I remember, the SNES was always high regarded and held in high regard, and also very much praised with most of its arcade ports, with fighting games, beat 'em ups, and the like. And a lot of the time, the Genesis version was just pushed aside because of sound or graphical limitations that just don't make the experience all worthwhile to those people. Now, opinions, we all have them. They're subjective. It always depends on your preference. Sometimes you'll play a game on a system that has been held in high review, which I don't like reviews anymore because a lot of them are biased now. Because they're afraid if somebody gives a game that they've been looking for a long time or is a very well-rounded franchise, then those people get scolded and harassed and even death threats because we have a lot of autistic people running around without want to spurt all over the place. Anyways, that is not within this subject matter here. There is quite a few games on the Genesis that are actually better than the SNES version when it comes to from arcade ports. And to start this new series off, I'd like to start with this little guy right here. Now, this cartridge is in awful, awful shape. I do plan on replacing the label eventually when I get the material to do it. But this is Fatal Fury. There we go. You can see it somewhat. I mean, this is probably one of my worst cartridges I own in terms of the presentation. It is absolutely sloppy. It's a mess, but I bought it this way. It was $2 at Game Crazy. I couldn't pass it up because I'm not an elitist prick. As long as the little ROM chip inside the cartridge works, I don't give a damn how it looks on the outside. I can repair this. So I'm not worried about it. But now, obviously, I could just end the video there and be like, "Oh, the Genesis version is great. You guys need to play that. The hell with whatever." But no, that's not what this video is about. This video is I'm going to basically show you the arcade version, and then I'm going to show off the SNES and Genesis versions as well, so you can make your own comparison. I mean, you can already tell which one's my favorite, and I'll explain to the best of my ability on why I feel the Genesis version is a superior home version for at least between those two platforms. Because I understand Fatal Fury was also released on other Japanese platforms that we didn't see over here in the Americas. So that's the difference. I mean, I'm an American boy, so I got to go by American standards and American available hardware. So that is what it is. But so yeah, I'm going to show the intros to all the games. I'm also going to show you the gameplays, and we'll compare music and all that. It should be a fun video. I hope you'll enjoy it. And hopefully this will be a first of many. So, that being said, let's just go ahead and get started, huh? Because that's what you're here for. You're here for a video, right? Well, of course you are. Otherwise, you wouldn't click on here. Anyways, enjoy. Ah, so iconic. As you can see with the intro, it's nothing special. Sometimes you see Tandy, yeah, Scott. Terry on the cliff, Joe on the cliff, or Andy on the cliff just staring in the distance with the words Fatal Fury going across the screen. And then you get to see the gameplay of how it plays before you were to put a quarter in and play. But this basically was SNK's foray into the fighting genre. It was popular enough to warrant a series. So, as you can see, the intro is nothing really all that special, except you get to hear some good tunes that the Neo Geo was known to pump out. But yeah, Neo Geo intro, nothing too special, but does the job, I suppose. Take a look and a listen. Yes, it may be simple, but what is there is excellent. See a little bit of the demonstration? I think that does a good job of what it's trying to sell. Anyway, yeah, so let that set the tone of what we're going to be seeing. I'm going to show each game, explain its gameplay type, and see how well it holds up with the presentation. You know, the arcade really doesn't need one, but I'll throw it in there just for licks. So you have something to compare it to, compared to the arcade, because the 16-bit ports are arcade ports, so it's best to see how the original plays and then the SNES and Genesis play in terms of ports. So, that being said, let's go ahead and check that out. Okay, we're going to get to some gameplay. As always, this is the arcade version of Fatal Fury. This just shows you a little bit of what you can do with the moves and whatnot. Anyways, you have your three characters. You have Joe Higashi, Terry Bogard, and Andy Bogart. For this video, I'll pick Terry since he's everyone's favorite. I usually start out in Pop How Cafe fighting against Richard Meyer. Some of these characters you fight against look absolutely stupid, but it is what it is, I suppose. Anyways, as you can see, the game looks absolutely fantastic for a fighter. I mean, you have all these awesome, you have pixel arts, you have scaling effects. And one of the things that sets this game apart from other fighters, other than the great graphics and, of course, the gameplay, is you can transfer from the upper level to the lower level. So basically, background and foreground you can travel against. Not many fighters at the time did that. And you have this little catchy tune in the background. You can sing along if you feel like it. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to embarrass myself here. Na 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 na. Okay, I lied. There's not much of it, so you know, Richard Meyer, as you can tell, uses capoeira fighting styles. Matter of fact, everyone has their own pretty much distinctive fighting style in this title. As you can tell, I spam a lot. You have rising tackle. You have the kickback. It's hard to do in this because you have to hold down back and then down forward and do it. And I think B, which is kick, yeah. Oh, I dizzied him. Ah, get out of here, Richard Meyer. Piss off! But yeah, for an SNK game of as early as this is, it looks, sounds, and plays fantastic. And you also have these little cutscenes that basically shows Mr. Geese Howard being a badass boss that he is. Now we have a Balrog ripoff here. I mean, they weren't hiding anything. Just look at them. But, like I was saying, though, I mean, for the time, this was actually really cool. I mean, it wasn't, you know, it wasn't Street Fighter 2 levels of great, but it was still a game I would be happy to put in a quarter into play. Of course, I just got my ass whooped. And when you notice you lose in this game, if you decide to play this game for yourself, you'll notice every motherfucking opponent you fight in this game, if you die on, have the same fucking laugh. It's like this. It's like the Southtown has the same laugh all around. Now, the Fatal Fury series has been going on for some time. I mean, the last one we got was Goro Mark of the Wolves But, I mean, for a series beginning, it starts off strong. And you only have 3 characters, yes. But considering the first Street Fighter, which the director or creator of this first Street Fighter actually had a hand in making this game, which is probably explains why the controls aren't perfect. They're a lot better than Street Fighter 1, believe me. But back to what I was saying, Street Fighter 1, you only had 1 character, and that was Ryu. And if you were in the second player side, you would play as Ken, who both had the same fucking moveset, so there was really no difference. Before we go to the home versions, I want to show you a certain fight in this game that's interesting. Now, you may think this guy is a weak ass because he's old, right? But he has a secret. Now, if any of you played this game, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Alright, you can beat him senseless for a bit, but then something happens. Oh yeah, he becomes the Incredible Hawk and does stupid amounts of damage. This pissed me the fuck off when I was younger. You just gotta keep on him. As best you can, throw in as many moves as you can. That little jump spinning punch move that he does, Hurricane Punch, is a pain in the ass. But then he reverts back to his old self and then just, you know, pretty much beat the shit out of him if you can. Like I said, I'm not playing for serious. I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. But we're going to play this round and then we're going to go to the console versions just to see how they hold up. And I love how the different backgrounds have different effects. Like here we have rain, and it looks great. I mean, yeah, some of you, you know, elitist graphical people may think that this game is, or this effect in Fatal Fury is not all that special, but to me it is. I like little details like this. And there goes Tung Fu Roo. So yeah, for the long and short of it, that's Fatal Fury. I mean, it's, you know, a one-on-one fighting game. It does the job. It's not perfect. It's not Street Fighter 2, obviously, but for what it is and for what it has, it's awesome. Okay, that was Fatal Fury for the arcade. As you can tell, it looks great for what it is. It's an arcade game after all. It has scaling effects, great colors, great use of voices, you know, nice fight grunts. You know, you feel part of the action. Much like any fighter out there, you should feel part of the action. Because if you don't, then it wouldn't be a fighting game. Anywho, you know, this game obviously was popular enough to warrant home ports, so they decided to bring them for the home ports, and we will see those in just a minute here. But I do have to, I want to give you a little bit of trivia too, just in case you're interested. This Fatal Fury was programmed and created by Takashi Nishiyama. Does that name sound familiar to you? Well, if it does, there's a reason for that. He created the original Street Fighter. That's probably why the controls pretty much suck dick. I mean, they do the part. They're not as responsive as one would like, though. What is with him and unresponsive controls or moves? I mean, Street Fighter 1 would have been actually a very fantastic game for legendary purposes if the controls worked. I mean, you literally have to let go of the button for order to Ryu to do his moves. Ryu, however you pronounce it, is up to you. I mean, I'm not saying it right, obviously. If you want to tell me in the comments below how you say Ryu's name, please let me know. I always look at it as, you know, Rai and then U. So Ryu. Some say it's Rue. I don't know. I'm not going to fucking nitpick over it. But yeah, I mean, so in order to do a fireball in the original Street Fighter, you basically have to hold the button down, do the motion, and then let go of the button. And most of the time, it won't work. Actually, what I find myself doing is mashing the buttons and continuously doing the fireball motions. And then maybe 2 out of the 10 times I do it, he'll do this or whatever the hell he says. Something fire. But yeah, and when they do hit the enemy in Street Fighter 1, it takes a shit ton of damage. So that's nice. But, the moves here, they do work, especially if you can get them to work. I mean, obviously you've seen, and I wasn't struggling too much, but I will tell you this. During the Tung Fu Roo fight, I was struggling to do Burning Knuckle on him, and same with Richard Meyer. I mean, Power Wave seems to work, but Burning Knuckle doesn't. I don't know. It's weird. It's very strange. But, so that's the arcade version. Of course, now we gotta go to the home ports. And instead of saving the worst for last, I saved the worst for first. So, just protect your ears. That's all I can say. But let's move on. Alright, here's the SNES version of Fatal Fury. Before we begin, though, listen to this sound. I don't know about you all, but that makes my head hurt. It's terrible. I mean, it's arcade accurate with the melodies, but the samples used are terrible. Anyways, you have, you know, your three characters once again. I mean, it looks the part for the most part, you know, not to be redundant. And you have, you know, you can pick your opponents just like you would in the arcade version. So the presentation right off the bat has it right. But here's a problem when we get to the state right after here. Watch this. Load time! What the fuck? There should not be load time, especially for a fucking fighting game. Now, basically, I'm just letting you take it in before I start talking. But, yeah, I'm getting my ass handed to me like nobody's business. Okay, first of all, there's barely any sound work, and for what is here, sounds like absolute trash. Okay, and I don't know if you've noticed the biggest problem with this port, other than, you know, the missing frames of animation and the sound design. You cannot go in between, in and out of the background and foreground in this version at all. One of the biggest draws in this game is not present here. At all. And notice when you win, doesn't go, okay, he just throws his hat. Oh, my ears. That sound. Go away, Jesus Christ. That's a migraine-inducing sound effect. I hate that. I don't know why they chose that. I don't know why it was considered acceptable to put that in an SNES fucking game. You might as well just program this for the fucking Atari, because that's an Atari-like sound effect. The AI in this version is relentless, too. I mean, there's barely any balance. You just basically have to spam your way to victory. That is if you can get the controls to work, because they are very delayed and very unresponsive to a point that it's almost unplayable. You just basically have to be patient with it. I mean, the melodies are fine. They are what they are supposed to be, but the samples used, it's what's the major problem with this port. And not to mention the portraits are smaller than my dick. I mean, the arcade version, they're nice and big, and that you can basically, they look good, you know, for the most part. I mean, like, this version does have the representation of the arcade, but this load time, I mean, you got character animations and all that, and that's good. Some of the voices have been taken out, and they put these stupid grunts in instead. And of course, the voices are highly compressed, being the SNES. I don't even think Street Fighter was that bad. So as you can tell, Michael Max is more or less, you already saw him in the arcade version, he's basically Balrog of this game, except he can throw a tornado. With more load time! Shouldn't even be a fucking thing. It's an SNES title, for fuck's sake. Yes, some SNES games did have loading out of this world, and Metal Warriors to let you know. I mean, those games did have load times, but I mean, I guess because it's the early days of the SNES, so they couldn't utilize a processor. I don't know the reasoning behind it. Some of you out there can please tell me in the comment section why there was loading games in early SNES titles. And I'll try them again with the Andy. But yeah, if I bought this version as a kid, like if I was a kid and I really wanted this game, and I bought this version and this is what I got, I would have been highly disappointed. It plays like shit, it sounds like shit, it looks good, but if it doesn't play well, then what's the fucking point? You know, you can have the greatest looking game of all time, with like a graphic masterpiece, But that means absolute diddly dick if the game plays like garbage. And this does, because the controls are very delayed, and it's not just emulation, it's on the actual console as well. I don't own the port. I knew a friend that did, and he used to tease me with it because he knew I hated the shit out of it. It's just not in any way... It's not fun. I mean, not because of the difficulty and all that, because the controls are shit. And on top of that, the other moves with all the characters, I can only do like one or two. Like him, I can't do Hishoken. Hishoken's done by holding down and back and then pressing forward to punch. See, it didn't do shit. I can never get Hishoken to work in this title. But you know what? I think my brain has had enough of this fucking port already. I don't want to play it. It's awful. I mean, shit, even as an adult, this port is really bad. Yes, I've played it on a stream. Yes, I played a video. I played it. But that is the last time I'm probably going to play this game. But hopefully, we'll see something better after this. So that was the SNES version of Fatal Fury. As you can tell, like, in terms of the graphics and presentation, it is arcade accurate to a degree. But the many things that suck about it, I mentioned it many times, is the sound. The sound design is absolutely appalling. I don't know if it's the samples they used or the compression tools they used for it. I don't know what they used to make it sound that bad. I mean, you have some voice clips, not a whole lot. When you win, you just do a win pose, and they don't say anything. Like Terry doesn't throw his head up and goes, okay, you know, like he does in the arcade version. And you can't tell me the SNES couldn't do it. The SNES is a 16-bit powerhouse. There is no excuse for what it was, especially if you considered when Street Fighter was released for the SNES. I mean, it was almost, not entirely obviously, but it was almost arcade perfect. I mean, you had all the animations, all the sound clips, you know, some stuff obviously were taken out, some animation frames and whatnot, but the core of the gameplay was still intact. And that's what made Street Fighter 2 on the SNES beloved by millions of gamers. Or, yeah. I don't know how big the gaming world was back then. It's not as mainstream as it is today, so I can't really speak too much on that. But with the SNES version, you have very, very delayed controls, horrible sound. The graphics, while arcade accurate, they look okay, but what really bothers me the most is the portraits. I mean, all you see is geese. You don't see the office he's in or nothing. I mean, come on. The point of a port, or a port from arcade to home, is to make the experience at home closest to arcade as possible. And Fatal Fury on the SNES fails in that regard. Matter of fact, I wouldn't suggest looking for a copy for this game in any way, shape, or form, because you're going to be sorely disappointed, especially if you're a fan of the arcade original. With that being said, let's move on to the meat and potatoes. Yeah, right, okay. Dyslexia. No. The meat and potatoes of this video, the Genesis version. I will explain what I like about it, the graphics, all that stuff. Obviously, there's going to be stuff omitted on the Genesis version, but you know what? If the game doesn't look that great, as long as the gameplay is still arcade accurate and it controls great, that's all that matters. So let's go ahead and show that off, and hopefully, you know, we can go ahead and wrap this up. Okay, here's the Genesis version. Right off the bat, the resolution is so much better. You have your characters to choose from, of course, per usual. Unfortunately, picking your opponent, you have to pick the location they're at instead of just picking them through a little GUI. So, you know, that's not arcade accurate, but that's okay. Portraits are bigger, they look better. You don't have character animations standing when you're standing still, but everything else is accounted for. You can jump in the foreground and background. So, guess what? The gameplay already stomps the SNES version flat. Not only that, I think the game looks better. There's more detail in the background. The sound, to me, is awesome. This sounds... I actually prefer this version of the Pow Pow Cafe over the arcade version. Oh, and what's that? A laugh when you get beaten? That wasn't the SNES version now, was it? No, it was not. And the controls are such a blessing. They feel so good to do the moves. I'm not gonna sit here and spam power moves all day and bare knuckles without a hitch. And it being a 3-button game, you can use your 3-button Genesis controller. I mean, I use a 6-button, but why nitpick? Oh, what? Okay. Oh, what was that? Okay! Not arcade perfect, but damn, I would rather, in a million years, play this version over what we just played. Yeah, the sound clips are a little garbled, but at least it has sound clips. And the grunts don't sound ear-grating either. They sound like the arcade, the ha, ha, and all that. I'm getting my ass handed to me by Richard, goddammit. But I will say that this version, at least in my opinion, is tougher. We're gonna go pick Andy, because guess what? You can do the moves in this game with Andy. Unlike the fucking Super Nintendo version where the moves don't work half the time. I mean, you don't have the standing animations, but everything else is fine. And look at that, I got knocked in the background. Who'd have thought? Who'd have think? Oh, what's that, a Zynekin? A Hishokin? Yeah, I can do Andy's moves. This is fan-fucking-tastic. Now, this is the game you would want to bring home if you were a fan of the arcade title. And with the sound design, I think the reason why it's so, like, better is I think Takara understood the hardware better in terms of FM synth. But damn is the fucking CPU in this version cheap as balls. I mean, really, is there a comparison that needs to be made at this point? I mean, you're basically seeing what, in my opinion, is the best 16-bit home version of this game. The SNES didn't do jack fucking shit. The Genesis had this. It was great. If you were a fan of this game, this was the port to get, no matter what anyone says. I mean, just look at it. Look how it plays. It plays like it should. Oh, wait. He makes a fucking, wind chant. He does his arcade wind chant, which is, yeah! As you just heard. Oh, look at that! I did the show you Repuden. You see that? All the moves work perfectly here. I mean, gosh. I'm just letting you take it in for a minute. This is when a company actually either knows the hardware or gives a shit. Oh, look at that! The full portraits this time? You actually see him in the chair in his office? Wow! I mean, I know I'm sounding sarcastic, but I'm just saying. This version has it all. Now, this is a character some people know and love. Duck King. Okay, I gotta explain this part right here. While you're fighting Terry, you only fight one boss character in the game in both ports, actually. There's supposed to be Huajai, Raiden, and Billy Kane. You only fight Raiden. So to compensate for that, in this version anyway, you fight one of your pals. To compensate for it. So, you know, you have someone extra to fight. So the experience lasts just a little bit longer. Not terribly longer, a little bit. But yeah, this is night and day. Animations are accounted for the most part. Now, see, you got your stand animation right there. I don't know what sets that off. I guess when the match starts and you start moving around, maybe that's what triggers it. I don't know. Yeah, that's pretty much what. So they are here. My mistake. I spoke ignorantly. I apologize. But yeah, I can do all the moves with Andy with no problem whatsoever. I can go in the background and foreground, knock my enemy in the background and foreground. Arcade accurate to a T. I mean, and the music sounds really nice. I mean, just listen to this special, well, not special tune. It's more or less a tune you hear when you fight your buddy. I mean, it sounds good. It's very catchy. I don't need to say anything more, I don't think. It just looks like it should. It plays like it should. It sounds like it should. Character portraits look fantastic. You got animations. You got a lot of detail in the background. You got all the voice clips. There is nothing to dislike about this port. I mean, if you want the closest you can get to the arcade experience at home with Fatal Fury, this is the port to get. Without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, I love this port so much, I could play all day. I mean, I could sit here and just go do a let's play of it, but I'm not going to. Well, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this, and we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Wow. Talk about night and day. Talk about a transition. The Genesis version is so much better than the SNES version. I mean, there's barely any comparison that needs to be made. It looks great. Colors look awesome. And you don't have the scaling effect because the Genesis was not built or equipped for that. But you can still jump into background and foreground. The SNES that could do scaling and rotation didn't have that. The portraits are bigger. I mean, when you see Geese sitting there, you see his office. I mean, I know that's just a little bit of detail, but it's there, and there's no load time. I mean, definitely, this port gets my money for all the right reasons. Great graphics. The sound is even better. It's much easier on the ears. Now, some of you might find the Genesis sound a little grating, but I think you'll get used to it. I mean, I think the FM synthesizer in that particular port does the game more justice than the piece of shit Takara port that was on the SNES, which was a fucking abomination and a piece of shit that shouldn't have been released. But your opinion may vary, and I'm actually curious to I'm curious of your opinion of what version did you find the best. I mean, I understand there is other versions out there for like Japanese computers and whatnot. But if you had a choice between the SNES version and Genesis, let me know. But before we cut this video, and I send you away, or if you haven't left already, I figured it'd be a little fun thing to look at some of the cover art for Fatal Fury, spanning these three systems. So like the Neo Geo, the Genesis, and SNES. I think it'll be a little fun. So let's start with the arcade original. I can't not look at that and not laugh. First of all, Terry gets knocked down by what I assume is Andy. I mean, Jesus, that's Andy. Holy fuck. Can I ever see anybody more 80s than that? Fucker looks like He-Man. I mean, I'm expecting him to pull out the fucking sword and be like, by the power of Grayskull. But no, he just looks like fucking He-Man. And Terry, you know, he's obviously surprised or about to, you know, prepare himself for the fall. But his facial expressions looks like he's seen the pair of tits for the first time. He's like, you know, like what? I guess it's fine. I mean, the artwork is okay. It does. I mean, even though it's like pure 80s, even though this game was made in 91, but it's still, the artwork is pure 80s. I mean, I mean, you got bootleg He-Man, and you have hipster Terry getting knocked down, and he looks like he saw a pair of tits for the first time in his life. So not very convincing, and not very, you know, store worthy. I mean, if I saw that box art, I would be like, oh, hell no. But, you know, if you've played the game, then I'm willing to forego that. However, doing a little bit of research and a little bit of searching, I found the Japanese version. That is a million times better. Apparently, from what I understand too, the arcade poster of Fatal Fury for the American version was this. Why couldn't this be the box art? Now, there are some Neo Geo enthusiast sites. I know I'm blocking my face. I apologize for that. But, here, I'll move. Hi. No, there are some Neo Geo enthusiast sites that actually give you prints that you can make for your Neo Geo games with custom cover arts. And my buddy hated the Fatal Fury cover so fucking much when he bought his Neo Geo in games. He actually got it done. He went to Kinko's, had it printed out in the way he needed it, and he made that his new cover. And then the old one, he didn't throw away. Now, he just kept it aside just in case that one got ruined for whatever reason. But yeah, the Japanese version of Gorilla Densetsu looks so much better. I mean, it doesn't... I mean, come on. There's no comparison. I mean, I'll even throw it back up again. I mean, come on. Look at this. Which one would you pick? I would go with the left. It looks great. I mean, it doesn't really exactly show what's going on. I mean, but you know, if you played the game in the arcade, you know it's a fighting game. Right, so... But now I gotta look at the 16-bit ports. Not only is the game appalling, this cover art... What the fuck am I looking at here? Okay, first of all, look at Andy. He sincerely looks like an insomniac crack addict. His eyes are all dipped in. His cheeks look all fucked up. He looks like he has dick-sucking lips. And Terry looks like some hipster fucking kid who goes to high school thinking he's a big old badass. And Joe Higashi looks like he's 40. The only decent thing in this photo is Geese. He looks like Mr. X in that photo if you look at Streets of Rage. Or Bare Knuckle 3's box art. Shitty game, shitty cover art. That does not compel me to want to buy the game. Now, let's look at the other one. The last one. Why are you being difficult? Which one would you pick? Look at the Genesis one. It perfectly encapsulates all that the Genesis version has to offer. Terry looks like Terry. Andy looks like Andy, even though he looks balding. He's like, let me tell you something, brother. I'm getting bald here, because Hulkamania's going to run wild on you. No. And then you have Joe, who looks like a Thai kickboxer. He doesn't look 40. He doesn't look like a creeper. And then, of course, Geese has this over-dramatic, reaching at you. But that encapsulates right there the entirety of what Fatal Fury is about, and if you could do that in cover form, I mean that works out. I mean, you can see partially that on my cartridge right there with Terry, but like I said, I need to replace this fucking cover. But yeah, there's no comparison, not in terms of just the game, because cover art, you can't judge a book by its cover, but with the SNES version, yes, you can. So, I prefer the Genesis version. The Genesis did it better. Hands down. There is no comparison, and there's nothing I could really say to combat that. I would like to defend the Super NES version. I can't. Bad choices all around. But like I said, with Takara, I can't blame them for the Super NES sound all that much, because I don't think they understood the technology very well. Matter of fact, it was like that in the beginning with a lot of SNES developers. They use that dumb bass guitar sample a lot in early SNES games. Paperboy 2, for example. It's littered with it. But, yeah, so, I know I'm making a lot of Genesis videos lately. That's because I want to prove to people that even though I grew up with the SNES and I seem to show bias towards it in terms of favoritism, it's not true. I adore my Genesis very much. It's sitting there with the multi-card in there, ready to play. And that's the way I want it. Because the Genesis was really good and did things that the SNES could not do. such as run games at good speeds with its high processor. It didn't have that strong of a color palette, but a lot of developers, tested their abilities to make games pop. I mean, look at Aladdin for the Genesis. It's even better than the SNES version in every conceivable way. But I think that's all I really have to say at this point, but I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. There is going to be a couple other videos with this same topic at hand, but, not for a little while. I want to spread everything apart, but I really hope you enjoyed this one, and it was really fun to make it, and please let me know in the comments, what version would you pick and why? I would love to hear what you have to say. Anyways, I am Forever Retro 82. You keep loving, keep gaming, and keep it retro, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care. Thank you for watching my video. If you'd like to see your name with these fine folks that have donated to my channel, feel free to check out my Patreon and throw me a couple dollars, and I'll throw your name up with these fine people. Or not. It's entirely up to you. I hope you have a great day, and thank you for dropping by.